What's good, everybody? And welcome back to the channel today for another review. Because on the next episode of We Didn't Ask for This, but here we are. It is time for us to jump into our full-blown spoiler review of White Man Can't Jump, available right now on Hulu. Yes, this is the 2023 adaptation of the classic, the 1991 classic, as we know, with Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes. And while everybody wants to focus on them, all I want to talk about is Rosie Perez, because man, gotta tell you, and I was the whole time I was watching, I was like, they better not try to replace greatness, because that ain't happening here. But nonetheless, yes, we are here with our full-blown spoiler review of the 2023 version of White Man Can't Jump, again available right now on Hulu. Adversary and I are back, as we usually do when it comes down to tackling things that really dab into our childhood, that nostalgia, the classics, you know, those things that serve a couple of purposes. One, either being great television or great movies, but also very, very precious, very, very, you know, in that safe box within the culture, within our households and our upbringings. And you know, we talked about House Party, and I think we gave that 2 thumbs down. I really was not going to check this out, and I don't know what even made me check it out, but we did. And I just want to with the first question here is, what did you think about this one?
Dog, I really liked this joint. I can't even fake. I really liked it. I felt like the first 15 minutes of it or so, it felt very much like the House Party reboot. I was like, yo, was this done by the same, you know,
director, which it was.
It was. See, yeah, and that makes sense, because it definitely gave me that same that feel, the way they did the presentation. It felt very much the same.
Yeah.
But after that 15-minute kind of lead in, it starts to take on a life of its own, and I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, okay, this one was done right.
Yeah. The one thing that really, after I started to really dive into who was behind this, yes, it's by the same director as House Party and Calmatic, but the writer Kenya Barris, who we know from all of the Blackish universe, shall we say, and amongst other things.
Okay.
And I think Kenya Barris does a really good job in a couple of things. I think he absolutely knows how to tap into the Black culture and depict that on the screen accurately. He covers themes and conventions within the culture that, you know, you have to be really immersed to really pick up on. I always talk about the one episode on Blackish where you talk about the universal Black man head nod. Like, we all know that. We all know it, but I don't know if I've ever seen the show actually acknowledge that it is a thing and it needs to be talked about, you know. So I think he does a really good job into, you know, the proper representation and depiction of the Black culture, but also adding a comedy into it that doesn't take away from the importance with it. With that being said, what better person do you want touching something that we actually none of us asked for? None of us woke up and said, man, I hope they do a White Man Can't Jump reboot, you know. So I think looking behind and realizing he was behind it also, Doug Hall is also co-wrote this as well. You know, I think there was like, okay, that makes sense. But yes, for my answer, yeah, I definitely very surprisingly enjoyed this. There was parts about it that I didn't, but I do love how this was inspired by a White Man Can't Jump, but then, you know, a little bit of a modernization of it by still nodding to the previous film, but absolutely knowing that this film needed to exist in this decade. It needed to exist within this age group, you know, this demo of folks that are, you know, tuning into the streaming services and may not have seen the original, but like, hey, that's Jack Harlow. Yeah, like, yeah, I like that guy. Like, okay, let's see what he got. And I think that's a big deal for somebody. I think it's, you know, somebody who grew up listening to his music and then now get to see him and Tiana Taylor in the film together. You're like, oh, that's pretty dope. Let me see what this is about. And I think that hopefully this does drive this generation of folks to do go back and look at the 1991 classic and then, you know, grow appreciation for the two of them. But if y'all don't know what this one is about, there's like a couple of little things that the thing's about, but it's ultimately about 2 ball players, one white, one black, both having obviously different background by ethnicity, but also having different struggles, but they seem to have found a common ground, or they have to realize they have a common ground, even though that their backgrounds look different, in order to really take upon the challenges that they're experiencing. And most of the challenges is a financial challenge that they're having, but there's also some like things within their household. There's definitely some things that therapy would serve them both a lot of good doings with. But nonetheless, it's a story about two unlikely friends getting on the court, balling together, and creating an unthinkable bond, if you think about it. So with that being said, I'll throw it to you, adversary, man. What were some of the things about this film? You say you really liked it. What were some of the things that really stood out for you?
I think the overall tone was it was dope. Like, you had based on the opening few minutes, you had an assumption of where it was going to go, and then they kind of took it in a different direction. So I really like that. I very much applaud the dialogue. I felt this was very much in line with like You People and other projects like that, where you have young, quote, urban youth having discourse with each other. But the way that they do it, I felt, like you said earlier, is very accurately depicted. Like, a lot of conversations we might have within the community amongst each other, amongst friends, sound just like that. But they are able to throw the comedic twist in there and keep it fun, keep it light. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the balance of both of the characters' development. They didn't spend too much time on either, or more time on one than the other. I felt it was fairly even. They were able to depict the differences, but also the similarities within the characters' situations. I really enjoyed my man, whose name eludes me now, the actor that just passed.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Lance Reddick.
There we go. Yeah, I enjoyed it. That was a pleasant surprise. I had no idea he was a part of this. And it took me right back to Black Panther, where, they was asking him what's next, and he was like, yo, I'm already gone. And then in this film, he's depicted as being sick, through that. So it's just the dynamic of it is very uncanny, that it's that depiction of the movie, and then you have what happened, what transpired in real world events. But I thought his character gave it a nice touch. It was just, overall, it was very well done for me. It has that, summer feel. It didn't take itself too seriously, but it wasn't the corny blockbuster cash grab that you typically find for the summer movies. They just get a bunch of actors thrown together, throw some CGI in it, and try to, it actually felt like a movie, like a good, like it's something I'd probably watch more than once.
Yeah. First off, again, going back to Lance Reddick, rest in peace to Baltimore's own, his untimely death. I could only have wished for many, many, many more years of Lance on screen. We just lost the character in John Wick 4. We lose his character in here. It is chilling. It's completely chilling. And regardless of, what was announced as his cause of death, it's just still completely chilling that this character, who transforms in every role he does, easily becomes must watch in anything that he does. And I was completely I was caught off guard because I had no clue he was in this. Again, I wasn't looking for this film, but like, hey, if you had said that he was in this, and I don't mean to exploit his death as a means of promoting the film, but if more folks knew he was in this, even in the capacity that he was in this, it's easily a more watchable film just off that. But it was definitely made me shed a quick tear, because it's just like, he was still very young. He gave so much to Hollywood and in all of these roles. And here we're talking about a character. He played the dad of one of the main characters we'll talk about in a second, who was in the film for about, let's just say, 15 minutes and left an impact. And I think that's a true testament to his career and what he's done, not only to Hollywood, but to the world. And I was just kind of like, dag, man, it was sad all around. But like you said, it's very uncanny how that all worked out. And then we have Sean from Power, who's one of our main characters here,
aka Sinqua Walls.
Yeah.
Yo, my man looks slam like Gucci in this joint.
He plays Kamal, who's alongside of Jeremy, who is played by Jack Harlow. The two of them are the two ballers from two different worlds who come together on the court to try to make a hustle. None of their respective careers, collegiate and beyond, had panned out the way they wanted it to be. But nonetheless, they have mild respect for one another that only grows their friendship and their camaraderie. And yeah, this is the dynamic of the film, is you have Jeremy, who's white, Kamal, who's black, different backgrounds, and they make it very clear they come from different backgrounds, and any chance they get a point to exploit the differences within the coaches, but also the similarity and also like some of the biases that are in the world, they take a chance with it. I'm going to agree and disagree with you a little bit on something you said. It's absolutely the conversations that are had within circles and just strictly, you know, within the culture. I think they went too hard with them. And I get that you do want to have a conversation about all these different things in the film. But I think about Miles Bullock character, Renzo, who also plays Slick in BMF. I think about how his character was like the reminder of this dialogue every single time he was on it. He always had something that was like, you know, definitely some type of like disintegration. I can't talk. Anything towards a white person. It's just like, yeah, we get it, but like not every single time. Every single time you gotta say, oh, the white man is the white man that. Like I get it. It felt a little forced at times with it. But you know, when it came down to discrimination, he was definitely the one to be like, yeah, that's how it is, and whatnot. So, you know, I get it, but at the same time, it's kind of like, all right, this way too much. Another name that I just want to quickly, I'll give it to you in 1 second. Another name that was in this that I would definitely want to give a shout out to is J. Alphonse Nicholson, who you know from P-Valley as Little Murder, who plays Jermaine. He's one of the people on the court that lets you know that, like, yeah, business on the court, but that business comes off the court. I'll be waiting for you over here. You know, a little scrappy dude. He plays the thug in this joint, or gangster, whatever you want to call him. It was cool to see him, and I think that a lot of folks like to slap a label on him because of his work in P-Valley. I think this was, just in case you had not seen him in anything else, I think this was like a stamp that this guy has range, and it was really cool to kind of see him along with this cast of folks, along with people like Tiana Taylor, Lauren Harrier, Vince Staples. Let's not forget like the cameos that was in this. As a matter of fact, I throw it to you really quick because you did mention this when we were watching it. The cameos, man, what did you think about it? Who did you spot, and so on?
I thought they were done. See, now I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but there was one or two little like, oh snap, little quick joints like, oh, okay. And they do that, you know, they tend to, that's always going to be a thing, I think, with these reboots. They're going to surprise you and slide somebody in there you probably wasn't expecting, or maybe somebody that you were expecting, and it's like, okay, it's good to see them in it. Yeah. But I was just going to say with to the point you made with the dialogue, I guess, I mean, not so much the subject matter, more just linguistically, like the way that we actually, it would come across, you know what I mean? I thought it was very, like, that's how we like, yeah, dog, what's up, man, this fool, and just the lingo. I love how they get that, you know what I mean? Like, granted, like you said, it is a bit embellished for the screen, but overall, it's like, that more or less is the feel of how we communicate, like linguistically. I like that they do that, as opposed to it may be older films where even the lingo seems very forced and very unnatural.
Yeah, that's all it is. And again, it felt like a lot of sarcasm in this. And then just go back to cameos, like Blake Griffin was one. Tyler Hero was there also. I mean, these were folks that they named them, so you know, if you know, you know. But they had some real ballers in the film, so that was cool. I think another really, and I guess we could talk about this for a quick second. The differences between this and the 1991 original is that, you know, this one was more softer than the previous one. Like, granted, I love the 1991. It's a classic. I think we all can agree with that. But that thing felt hostile. You know, it made me feel like I was never going to do any pickup games ever in my life because one, I was never strapped, because you know, everybody had the strap in the bag, you know, and it's just what it was. And hard fouls, which wasn't really even a thing in this. And like, why they like had a flamethrower in this, but like, nah, it felt hostile, and it did felt a lot more legitimate in terms of how things go down. It is not to say that the streetball culture isn't still rocking to some degree of what this was showing, But like now it's all about brands. You know, people have to protect their brands. That's a lot of what the character Kamal had to deal with. Was like he was supposed to be the next one up. He's struggling with living up to the expectations, the failed career, the expectations that his dad put on him, or that he thought his dad put on him, shall we say, and then ultimately everybody coming for him. And I get it, but back in the day, 1991 was like it didn't matter who you were. You get on that court, you ball. You know, you gotta be tough because everybody's aiming for everybody. There's no. I don't care if you're like the best player on the team. If you had a name, everybody's coming for everybody, and that's what the differences was with this.
Tone.
Like,
tone, absolutely a different tone. Yes, the original definitely had much more grit. It had a harder feel to it. Even when they got to the point of running the scams in the pickup games, you felt like things were at stake. Even just watching it, you felt for the characters, like, oh snap, are they gonna get the money? Oh snap, how they gonna get out this situation? Oh, that cuz got mad and It definitely felt more dangerous, if you will, than this film did. A lot of what I guess was depicted here kind of put me in the mind of Bel Air a little bit, with Will in a couple of scenes where he's, the street ball. Like you said, not to say that it got soft or anything, but just in this movie, it felt more like normal. Guys come to the court, they may butt heads or brush shoulders, but that'll probably be the extent of it. Whereas in the original joint, it was like, walk out the court backwards because they might shoot you when you turn around.
Yeah,
it's just a different tone.
To go to Bel Air, it's like what we saw Bel Air from the very first scene of Bel Air is what the 1991 version of what Will came from in Philly. Outside of when Will was in Venice, it was Venice. Right. I can't talk for nothing. I also said Vent Staples, but like the differences now, and I just think like the culture has changed. But again, I think everything is more about brands now. Everybody realized like they are potentially a walking commodity, and I think that's a lot of what the characters dealt with. But the 1991 version, like, listen, you go on the court.
People aiming for you. Who's balling and who's getting paid? That was it.
That's it. But yeah, a lot of tropes from the original film, I would definitely agree. You can definitely feel the inspiration, but it definitely had, which I think is cool, as House Party also tried to do as well too, is I ain't gonna say House Party. I'm just gonna say a lot of films are also really trying to throw these very important themes within the films, and I think this one really did have the theme of like confronting and facing the challenges in your head, and to a point where there is no more running. You have an issue, you have something you need to work on, you have to head it on. You can't keep running. And as we see Jeremy, he's dealing with, and I said we're talking spoilers, so we can just get right to it. Jeremy dealing with physical injuries, he's dealing with money issues. Kamal dealing with the legacy issues, but he's also dealing with the big game feels. He's played in big games, but he's also crumbled in big games. He also is dealing with the struggle of his dad print being in everything he does. His dad needs to be at the game. What does it look like when his dad's not in the game? And he's also has a wife or girlfriend, and Amani, who's running a hair salon played by Tiana Taylor, who believes in him to no end. And that's kind of the dynamic that you want at home. But even that's not enough, because he needs his dad there. His dad has been really a figure in his life the entire time. And now that things didn't go the way he wanted to, his dad was also dealing with health issues before he ultimately passed, which was a sad little ending for the film. Like seeing that really, and I think Tiana Taylor is the amazing casting for even that particular moment of just having her still appear to be strong, but you can see something's going on. They shot that amazingly. I think all of us knew like something was up when he was on the court. But I just think that these are the things that a lot of films are doing, is trying to really put a focus on not only what's happening within the films, but like undertone things within the films and things that folks can take from out of it, in terms of saying like, listen, you could ball your entire life, but you're not going to be able to escape these things that have been with you and that you've been battling with for all these years. And I think we see that with Kamal, and even Jeremy with PT, and having to come to terms that like his body's not going to give him what he needs it to give. You're going to have to shift to a plan B, sir. I
think for both the characters, it was coming to terms with the reality. Like being able to deal with the reality of your situation, but at the same time not allowing that reality to constrain you or limit you to the point where you can't elevate to something else.
Yeah.
I think Kamal's big thing, everything you said, and then the cherry on top of that was the anger. It was throughout the film, he had that inner demon, if you will, that he had to come to terms with. And with Jack Harlow's character, the same thing. The realization that, hey, as nice as you are, as much skill as you do have, your physicality is a part of it when it comes to athletics. And physically, you are not in the shape that you were in 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And so you may not be able to, even though you have the skill for it, physically, you can't do it. And now, how do you deal with that? How does the end game shift or adjust to make up for that? You know what I mean? And I think both of the characters went through their journeys the way they needed to come to their realizations. I thought that was also depicted pretty well.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, just a couple other things. Again, spoiler reviews. So I did take a look at some reviews, and I'm just not even going to read the source of where I'm reading the reviews from, but a lot of people are kind of like mad about it. People are asking why. And I think that, like, we all had that question of why, but you can't judge a film by why beforehand, because that's already the question beforehand, and then rate it afterwards as why. If you've already had your mind that you wasn't going to like it, there's no point in even reviewing it, is my thoughts. So yes, we asked why, but now that we watched it, then we could say, like, okay, now that we're here, what do we think? And I think they did a really good job into giving this generation a version of the classic that honestly, hot take here, I'd be down for a sequel of this. I think they can do something with this. I love the camaraderie amongst the two leads here. I think that this generation deserves to have their own version of what our classic was. I don't want to be the grumpy old man and say, like, oh, it's ours forever, but I think the gift should keep on giving, as music has done, as a lot of different things to the culture. And yes, it will never be the same. I always think about, every time I make this statement, I always think about anything Robin Williams was in, because you're never going to touch a Robin Williams film. That does not mean that Robin Williams is in heaven right now saying, I want no one to ever do anything I've done before. You're not ever going to be able to duplicate it, so you might as well make a left at the light and try your own version of it and see how it works. So, I think that this did a really good job in giving this new generation something with updated music, obviously, because the times have passed. I think the only issue I did have is that we did have like that retro look for the 1991 version, but this is obviously current. So I'm a little confused about, like, is this the new wave that I missed out on, or what?
Well, yeah, I guess fashionably speaking, it's not so off, because I was looking at it and it was like, it does it did kind of have that older feel. But a lot of the guys, that's how they dressing now, bro. Like they wearing the shorts again, like all of that's back. It's popping now. So that's how they gonna look.
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, the style is forever going to be dope. You see, and listen. You already know what it is. When you see somebody roll up with the Wesley Snipes from it, you already know what it is. It's not even a question. You already know what it is.
And the 5 panel with the brim pulled up.
You already know what it is, and it is kind of. It sucks that they won't be able to, they weren't able to like really channel that. But it is what it is. I think, Wesley and Woody did a fantastic job. I forgot their names for a minute, but Billy and Sydney, like you'll never be able to touch them and what they've done. Also, shout out to Rosie Perez. She's so damn fine. That's all I gotta say. No, but for real, that's gonna hold the place, and I think this generation deserves to have a chance with it. So, I love the original. It's absolutely a way better film. This was just something that was inspired by it, that did not try to duplicate it. That's what House Party did wrong. You did not have to try to be House Party 2.0.
Right.
You should have just. I think that film should have just not have been called House Party. We could have picked up on that it was inspired by House Party. But this, you can tell it's inspired by White Man Can't Jump without it trying to truly be White Man Can't Jump, And
like you said, the same director. That's what I was saying earlier.
Lessons learned.
He did the first one, learned from that one, and on his second go around, he got the formula right. So
yeah. And then, like I said, Kenya Barris and them being around definitely helps. But any closing thoughts, man, before we roll out, man?
No, just that I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed the chemistry between the two leads.
Hmm.
Um, it was pretty good, man. It was like you said, like, it was the summer joint, the joint for the summer, not to be taken too seriously, but enjoyable enough to watch more than once.
Yeah, yeah. It's exactly where it needs to be. It's on Hulu,
Yeah,
folks. And you can watch it in the comfort of your home, because
yeah.
that's where this film knew that it needed to be. I don't think this film tried to be anything that it wasn't.
No blind.
Yes, there's a lot of busting of the balls going on and the nagging of each other, but by you're white and I'm black, and white people do this and black people do this, you do all that. Yeah, you get somebody dropping the white man can't jump name, the title name within the film. But overall, like, yeah, I enjoyed the film because I think the film this time knew exactly what it needed to be, and it worked. It wasn't a great film. It wasn't the best film I ever seen, but I did get my laughs and I did get my moments. I was like, oh, kind of cringe, but ultimately it's an enjoyable film. I'm not even going to sit here and try to be critical about it. I think there's more positives than negatives on this one. And then anybody who goes and has hesitation about this because it's a remake of the original is the original. This is inspired by the original. If you like Bel Air, I think you will like this. If you like Fresh Prince of Bel Air and then you watch Bel Air and say, oh, they're totally different, but I see how they inspired you, I think this one does the same sort of recipe. And I think that's fine. That's why me and Adversary, that's why we had the reviews. I think we're starting to see what's happening now in this new generation of film and television, that folks don't need to remake and reboot things. You just need to inspire folks to go watch the originals by your work, and you inspire your work by the original, and just that will just be okay. That's it.
Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. Just put some new rims on it.
Yeah. Anyway, folks, let us know your thoughts about White Man Can't Jump. Did you like it? Did you not like it? The things you didn't like, let us know in the comments. I'm interested to see things that people said that has to do with this film. I don't want to hear no like, oh, well, he wasn't Wesley and no one can be Woody Harrelson and Jack Harlow's not an actor and da. I want to hear anything that's not relevant. Just please, things that pertain to this film that makes sense. So anyway, we're done, folks, for the day. We'll catch you back with more reviews and content very soon. Thank you for watching, folks.